What's going on, everybody? We are back reviewing movies by popular demand, maybe not by popular demand, but you know what? I said I don't care. I want to be back. So very excited to actually be back talking about movies again. Rob, between our schedules and just everything that's going on, it really has kind of been difficult to, actually do anything, but we were out drinking a couple of beers and the reason why we're starting with this is because I was so tempted to go see this in the theater that I said maybe we start with this, and then lo and behold, because let's just face it, that's exactly what happened. My phone on my TikTok feed sent me something from this movie, and I sent it to you and said, if this isn't a sign, this is the first movie that we do to get back into the podcast. I don't know what is.
Season 2, baby, here we go. I mean, it's only been 1 year, 4 months, and 27 days since the last episode was published, but I mean, who's keeping track?
Yeah, and we were on Halo. Oh, God.
Yeah. It was Halo, but right the same day that episode released was the all-female Ghostbusters episode. And with all that time
Yes.
off, I secretly think it's funny that there is somebody out there who listened to the show regularly who just assumes that because we said unkind things about that movie that the show just got canceled.
Yes,
that's why.
Or we just hated ourselves so much that we were like, we can't do this anymore. This movie's broke us. But
yeah, it might be that too.
It could be a mixture of things. And, the funny thing is for any listeners that are going to be back from listening to this show in the past, welcome. Any new listeners that might catch this, welcome to you as well. This is probably going to be a little different than maybe what people remember. Not saying that that's a good or a bad thing. Probably with all of that time in between episodes, there's maybe going to be some growing pains in how we discuss things and what we do, but we're going to do our best to keep you entertained and talk about these movies. Now, Rob, like I said, the one thing about this is this got re-released in theaters, actually did very well that they kept it for another week from the initial screening that they were going to do for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It did so well, in fact, that they are doing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 next year for its anniversary. And that's a whole separate episode that we're going to do.
Oh, yeah.
But this is something that I particularly like. I really like this. And I've always liked this, but I watched it today. So it is very fresh. In my mind, I got done about realistically probably 35 minutes ago with this. So a lot of things are fresh in my head. And, one thing about this movie that I never forgot, but what's interesting is, this is not the cartoon. If you watch the cartoon, this is not it. This is a darker movie. It's not, it's not like Dark Knight or anything like that, but this is not the bright colors and loving turtles from the cartoon show. And that's not a bad thing because there's a lot of good moments in this movie, but this really works. And Rob, you mentioned this, so I'm going to let you take this part over, but we're just used to this in today's society. Everything gets adapted. Everything's got to be dark. Everything's got to be gritty. This certainly wasn't what Turtles was for kids that were watching the cartoon. But in this case, I think this is one of the strongest suits of the movie.
Yes. I kind of was in the same boat as you where I do remember that this was different from, look, growing up in the early 80s into the 90s, Ninja Turtles was everything to people of our generation. This was all we wanted was Ninja Turtles. And, we were mostly familiar with the cartoons, which really people kind of forget that in the 80s into the 90s, children's programming, especially cartoons, really served as uh, infomercials for the toys. Like that's really what it was. You had to get, and actually, I remember seeing something about the Ninja Turtles. Like that was really part of how they got their toy deal was it had to be tied into like some of the changes that they made to the characters because in the comics Turtles started as a comic series and it was very dark. You're
Yes.
100% right. And I don't know how many people know this, but it was kind of almost a riff on Daredevil. Like it kind of exists parallel to Daredevil. Like the same acid or the same slime that blinded Daredevil ends up in the grate, and that's what transforms and mutates the turtles. And how Daredevil fights the Hand, so the Ninja Turtles fight the Foot Clan. Like it's there's some tie-ins and things like that, but you're right. The original comic was very dark. All the guys had red masks, and the reason that they ended up with the iconic orange and blue and purple and red was so that kids could differentiate which turtle was which, and that was part of what was going to sell more toys. That was part of like all of the different things that got this thing going. So I do remember this movie being a little darker than what I was used to, but it's weird because like it works. Like, and the crazy thing, and I even remember this from being a kid, but like, I didn't expect them to like swear. And it's not, and there's no F bombs in this movie, but like minor swears like damn and ass and things like that. I was like, wow, this is based
Hmm.
on a cartoon. I was kind of surprised as a kid that that was in there. And the end of the movie, it's got a kind of a dark bit there too that we'll talk about. But I was kind of surprised, but you're right. It wasn't gritty for the sake of trying to be gritty. It just actually kind of worked.
Yeah, and a lot of the things that work about this movie, and again, I like this. One of the big things that is going to be different from what we were doing is at the end, really kind of rating it and popcorn buckets and things like that. And as movies have kind of evolved, reviews have evolved, it's more of, do we like this movie? Do we not like this movie? Why is that going to be is how we're really going to go about this. Um, but it not only does like the grittiness of this work and being a little bit darker, but man, one of the things that I did forget about this movie is how well they actually make these turtles feel like brothers in this movie,
Mm.
how connected Splinter feels to them. In a movie that has a lot of strong parts, and I'm going to give this movie a lot of praise over the time that we talk about this. That is one of the biggest praises that I can give it is this movie really does make you feel like these turtles care about Splinter and Splinter cares about these turtles. And when they're broken up and Splinter is captured, I really like I feel something from that. Like even though I know what this movie is and I know what's going to happen, rewatching it today, I was like, man, like this actually makes you feel for this situation. And each character has a good personality, but again, they feel connected. They feel like they have grown up together, learned together, trained together. Um, and in a movie that's short. I mean, this movie is a breeze. I think it's an hour and 45 minutes long. If it's that, which by some today's standards is a very brisk movie, they make you feel that like they give you enough to feel for these characters.
One of the things that I love about film and TV shows, well executed film and TV shows, is does this world feel lived in? Does does this film work on its own? Do we believe that these relationships exist without the movie having to hold our hands and show every piece of every backstory? And you nailed it. These brothers feel like brothers. We can tell the tension that has existed for a long period of time between Raphael and Leonardo, for example. We can tell that Mikey and Donnie have this maybe closer relationship between the two of them, that they kind of do stuff differently on their own when the other two of their four are fighting with one another. But when push comes to shove, those four guys know that they have each other's shells, like 100%. Like there's no doubt that they have it. And we believe that without the movie having to hold our hand to see it. And when you were talking about the relationship with Splinter and everything like that, like when he's captured, that bothers them. And it bothers me as an audience member to see that. Like, it's like you really buy into it. And I kind of remember this too, but this is probably the first time I've seen this movie in 20 years at least. But seeing Splinter in chains when he's like captured by the Foot Clan, oh my God, that still does something to me. And as a kid, I
Yeah.
just was watching the movie. As an adult, I know I'm looking at a Muppet and I don't care because it's like, oh my God, I just want to get in with the bolt cutters and let's go. Let's go get them now. Like that's it evokes an emotion. And I've complained about CG and bad CG a lot in the past, but like go watch this movie again. Like for
Hmm.
those of you listening, go watch this movie again and tell me that you prefer cartoons over this because this is actually pretty good. Like this is believable. There's actually something happening. And yeah, I know that at times when the turtles open their mouths a little too wide, you can see the eyeballs of the guy that's actually in the suit. Like, yeah, I know there's those memes that are out there. I've seen them. And yeah, sometimes you can sort of see the seams of where like the cowl and the headpiece all kind of fit in together. Like you can kind of see that. But I would still prefer this over the CG version. Like, I
Hmm.
don't know. Maybe I'm on an island. Maybe I'm crazy. But I think this held up unbelievably.
Yeah, no, I feel that this held up incredibly well. One of the other things too, like you must have been reading my mind, was with Splinter when he's captured. The thing that I didn't remember too about this when he's captured is you can see blood in his fur. You can see
Yes.
almost bruises from when Shredder has hit him. Um, and then even at the end when he's up on the roof and he's talking, you can see blood on his teeth. Like he's still hurt, he's still injured. um and I had forgotten about all of that, and I'm like, man, watching this as an adult, like this is really good. Like I can see why I like this as a kid, and I see why I like it as an adult. And sometimes when you go back and watch some of these movies, you don't get both effects anymore. um it just doesn't hold up the same, or especially whether it be looks, CGI, things like that. um but again, this movie holds up incredibly well. And not only do you believe the turtles, one, um the way they portray Shredder in this, I really like. First seeing him watching the TV screens, the first scene where he's walking into the hall to address the Foot Clan, him coming around the corner when he smacks Splinter to ask what the turtles are, i- introducing him for the final battle. Like, this is an intimidating villain. He's very well done. But even the side characters, April has something to do, Casey has something to do. And they're all done well. Even the side character Danny and his dad, who is April's boss, I feel like they're utilized well. And that's a rare thing because, compare this to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows, which we talked about. Casey Jones feels like an afterthought in that movie. April, whatever. She's there in the opening scene to look Megan Fox hot, and that's really it. Like,
That's her
and
job.
and not yeah, and not saying the person who plays April O'Neil in this is, I think she's actually she's very good looking in this movie. But like they're all done very well. And even too with these side characters, and Rob, we've talked about this in so many movies that we've talked about, the people that get together almost out of nowhere. But yet at the end of this movie, I actually believe that April's like, just shut up and kiss me. I have to go do an interview. Like,
Yeah.
it feels like these two over the course of this time, like, actually did kind of like each other, and whether or not it's a fling or whatever, but it didn't feel like, so wait, why would she do that? It makes no sense. Every single side character to me in this movie actually, they fit and they have enough to do where you like them.
Even the police chief, who feels at times a bit like a caricature, really also isn't. Like, he works. Like every one of
Mhm.
those side pieces, and your point about unearned like last scene kisses that happen in movies like way too often, it is very bothersome. Like, wait, where did this come from? But in this one, you can actually kind of see that, when they're on the farm and they're having that argument, and but at the same time, like there's like a little bit of a, hey, what's this, like, we don't get to the end and she has that line to him and it's just like, oh wait, where did that come from? We don't feel that way at all about this. And I want to go back to talking about Shredder for just a second, because his entrance, when he comes in and he's got the cape on and Tatsu comes over and like has to like roll the cape off of him and it exposes all the
Mhm.
blades.
Well,
Underrated
even the
movie
sound
villain.
effect there.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, like even the sound effect when he takes back the shoulder pad and exposes the blade, just like that little music cue in that
Yeah.
is so well done. But continue.
Yeah, I think we kind of sleep on Shredder in this movie as an all-time great movie villain, just because we don't really, like, if I say to you Shredder, you think of all of the other ways that we consume Ninja Turtles. You don't really think about him in this movie the same way you do his cartoon appearances and video game appearances and like those things. No, this is like, dude is scary. Dude is very intimidating. You believe him as like a guy that all of these teenagers are looking up to, as like, oh, we want to be like him. He's the ringleader. Like when he's talking about how they're they're outcasts and they're miscreants and all this other stuff, and he's going to provide them family. Like, if you're a troubled teenager in New York City and this dude comes out and says he's going to take care of you, you just kind of want to be like, dude, I just want to grow up and I want to be you when I grow up. Like, you can understand where that comes from. And when they have the fight on the rooftop, it it's so well done. It executes very well. He is just terrifying. Um, yeah, an all-time great movie villain that I don't think gets enough credit.
No, rewatching this today, I was like, boy, why don't I think of this version of Shredder? Because he's a good villain, but he also doesn't feel like a villain. He doesn't have clunky exposition. You know what it like. He just feels he just feels real. He doesn't really monologue to the turtles. Like he has that one thing where he talks about like the three of you might have overpowered me, but like he's not explaining his plan at the end just to be able to get distracted. Um, it just he feels so well placed in this universe, and yeah, you can see where these people, the way that they depict New York and everything like that, how these kids and growing up and everything, like how he would amass a group of kids and teenagers and the Foot Clan, whether he brought some of them over from Japan or whatever, like whatever the case may be, you can sense that, yeah, it makes sense that he would have these people following him.
So, could we just talk for a second? How sweet was the Foot Clan hideout? Like, go back to the 90s as a kid and
Right?
think about that hideout. What kid in the 90s didn't want to live there? Like, you can skateboard, you can play arcade games, you get to do karate all day. Like, it was like the coolest thing in the entire world. There's music playing everywhere, there's nobody telling you what to do. All right, so here's my
And
question for you.
cigarettes, because
Right, just
again,
everywhere.
for listeners though, maybe that are younger than us and don't really understand it, it is crazy for me because we were talking about this, me and a couple of people, like a week ago or whatever at work, and it was like the difference in not really smelling cigarettes anymore, like
Right.
cigarette smoke with like vaping and everything. But like for somebody that wasn't around, it's so hard to describe how dominating cigarette smoke was in your everyday life.
It
And
was
I
everywhere.
never, but man, you go back and you look every movie, like holy cow. So yeah, like in that era, oh my god, like I could hang out, play cards, play video games, skateboard, spray paint, smoke cigarettes, like it,
It
For
would have been
somebody who
ideal.
doesn't know, yeah, that was like, oh my god, like
Like if you're just an average suburban kid in the 90s who probably doesn't really get into a lot of trouble, like really doesn't want to get in trouble, that place seemed like the coolest thing you could ever imagine. The only thing that I came
yep.
up with that's on par with that, and I want to know what your answer is. If you could pick one place that would be the coolest place possible to hang out, if you're back in the 90s as a kid, would you want to hang out at the Foot Clan warehouse or
Hmm.
the Lost Boys treehouse from Hook?
Hmm. Probably the Foot Clan. I
Yeah,
God, I gotta watch Hook. I love that movie. Oh
that's a good
man,
movie too.
I was obsessed with Hook.
Yeah.
Um,
But like when you see the
so
Lost
good,
Boys like treehouse, like that's kind of the same sort of vibe. Like it just seems like the coolest place ever.
right? You could probably imagine yourself in the Foot Clan while you're with the Lost. But anyway,
The slasher
but
fanfic we never knew we needed.
right, exactly. Now, the one thing that I will say is, again, just because, like, I laughed about this more now just because of how it is and seeing movies, and the Foot Clan feels real. This New York feels real. You said lived in universe. Does this universe feel lived in? Does it feel like the Foot Clan could exist? Does it, the muggings, the stealing, all of that feels real. And I kind of had to laugh at the turtle in a trench coat and and a hat that could go to the damn movies that his whole turtle face is still freaking showing, and he just walks by people, and there's scenes where Raphael just walks by humans, and it's like, so wait a minute, like, because you get in this movie that they need to hide in the shadows and things like that, but it's like, that part did make me laugh. And again, it's such a small little thing, but being the way that I am now, that just made me laugh because I'm like, how does nobody actually just out of nowhere just go, Jesus freaking Christ, what the fuck? Like, and
What
just
are you, dude?
right, and just freak out and stop him.
I had noticed the exact same thing. And the crazy thing is, it's not like the first time he's done this. He's like, I'm going to a movie. And he just like
Right?
goes and grabs his going to a movie disguise. It's
Yeah.
just like, oh my God. Like, I know
Right?
it's New York and everything, and there's a lot of freaky looking people, but I think that one was be a little bit different. Like the wideness of the face, the greenness of the skin, and that's kind of maybe the one thing that is you got to just kind of like go with your suspension of disbelief because in general people who spend a lot of time worrying about being in the shadows and being hidden really kind of suck at it because the Foot
Mm-hmm.
Clan attacks with all of their gear on in an area where it's
Right?
very easy to see them. The turtles really do almost nothing to conceal themselves. Like when they're out on the rooftops and things like that, like people can just kind of see them. Like
Mm-hmm.
when Raph goes to the roof of the building and Casey sees him from across the way, like more than Casey would have been able to see him. Like that's
Right.
they really kind of suck at this kind of like ninja thing.
Yeah, and the one thing though is, and again, that's like my only real
Oh yeah,
nitpick about this movie. Um but the fight scenes, even like, yes, are they the greatest choreographed things? No, they're not. We've certainly seen better fights choreographed in movies. We've seen worse. Um but you just root for these guys. So when these things are happening, that scene where Raph gets attacked on the roof and then gets thrown through the sky, through the sky window, like, I love all of that. Then it's too heavy, more Foot Clan drops in, they drop into the basement, Casey shows up. I just love all of it. I was hooked. I was just sitting there intently watching this movie, and that's, I just think, another thing that is a test to, is it a good movie still, does it hold up, do you like it, is Now, again, like you said, I haven't seen this in forever. Maybe the same amount of time as you, maybe not. Um, but it was no, I'm locked in. Like I'm
Yeah.
watching this because there's movies that like I've watched when we were doing this show and I don't have to completely pay attention to because I just remember it and it's like whatever, I know what's happening here. I'll remember what I want to talk about. I don't need to see this scene, but like I wanted to watch every part of this. Nothing had me distracted watching this movie. And to me, that's the ultimate sign is something that came out that I've seen multiple times, no matter how long it's been in between. I wanted to watch this.
I've seen this so many times that I can't even begin to tell you because, and this is kind of the funny thing, like, millennials, Gen X, like those listeners will know what I'm talking about. Um, Younger millennials and Gen Z, Gen Alpha, they won't really understand this, but like pre everything is streaming all the time, you really
Mm-hmm.
only had, like, if you wanted to watch a movie, you had to have it in your house. So
Yeah.
this was one of the ones that we had as a kid that my brother Eric and I could just go to. It was on VHS even. Had to go to where the videotapes were. And anytime we wanted to watch something, we had like, maybe 30 options or so. But it's not like today where you can scroll Netflix for 2 hours and not still find anything you're ready to commit to. It's just like, oh yeah, that
Right.
looks good. That looks good. That looks good. Yeah, it wasn't like that. And so this was one of the ones that we had. So I have seen this reliably dozens of times when in my younger days. And so I knew a lot, like once I kind of got into the movie, I started remembering all the parts that were coming. I remembered a lot of the lines, I remembered a lot of the scenes. And yet I never felt compelled to just like drift out and like grab my phone, check Instagram. Like I didn't feel like I needed to do any of that. I wanted to continue to see this. And you talked a little bit about the fights, and I was really wanting to pay close attention to how they make this work because trying to, and really this is another thing this movie doesn't get enough credit for, trying to execute these stunts and these fights in a turtle costume where the extra weight that you're carrying around and the fact that you can't really see quite as well as you would if you didn't have all of that extra stuff on, like that throws, like the way to jump and flip and do all this other stuff, like the balance is off. Imagine carrying like a really heavy backpack and then trying to
Right.
do all this stuff. So I was really paying attention. What I really noticed was that the editing was so crisp and sharp, and the cinematography, the choices of where to set the camera, the choices of where to cut, what to show, the distance that you set the camera up. There was never anything that was too far away except for the parts that needed to be far away. Everything else was close enough where it never felt like the Foot Clan were all standing around waiting to get their ass kicked, which long-term listeners know that's one of my biggest pet peeves of fight scenes in movies is when guys are literally just standing around. There's a little bit you can see in the background if you really look for it, but overall, the editing and the overall technical production of these fight scenes was incredibly well done, and not just incredibly well done, funny. Like a movie
Mm-hmm.
about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is the craziest four words that anybody's ever put together in a sentence that became a multi-billion-dollar property. It's kind of supposed to be goofy, and the parts that needed to be funny were really funny. And when Raph is getting absolutely slaughtered, I mean, he is getting his ass kicked, and that's kind of a dark moment, but yet they balance it with some of the humor of the rest of the fight, and it all still really works. Like everything that's going on between the Foot and April, as that antique shop is getting attacked, and then as all the extra guys come in, like it's hysterical. I loved it.
Yeah, like a fellow chucker, hey, like
Yeah.
okay, I can wait for you guys to not fight to do that. Like that's perfectly fine. I'll accept it.
And Mikey running around hitting everybody with the cymbals. It's hysterical. Like that's still funny right now. I'm laughing about it just thinking of it.
Yeah, just so many things about this movie just work. But one of the things, and I'm pretty sure that this is what you were referring to, but man, you get to that ending, and I think the standing around is something we'll talk about much more with the second movie. Um, I think that's one of the things that they didn't hide as well in that one compared to this one, because there are some shots from memory to me that I'm like, so why are they just standing there? But um man, you get to that ending, and let's just be blunt, and again, I think this is what you're talking about. Yo, they straight up, and again, the second movie, but man, Casey Jones just straight up wants to turn Shredder into mashed potatoes. Like that guy, it, in real life, that every single bone in his body is broken. That guy is dead, and not just dead. That is a Mortal Kombat fatality, and I was like, Jesus! Like,
Dead in a horrific way.
yeah, like I remembered that he was in there, but like just thinking about it, I was like, holy shit. Like they straight up murder this dude in this movie.
I love this part actually because again, we talked this movie's a little darker maybe than what we thought. How many times? So growing up as a kid, watching Disney movies, watching, cartoons in general, like the number one way that almost all villains in children's movies die is falling off a cliff. All of
Mm-hmm.
them. They all fall off a cliff. Like Gaston, like all of them fall off a cliff. And it's because, the hero can't be the one that actually like killed the bad guy, right? It almost like never happens. They all fall off cliffs. And in this one,
Right.
Shredder falls off the roof, kind of a cliff, and Casey's just like do and murder. And I kind of just love that that they chose to do that here. Which, by the way,
Well,
the one thing I was trying to figure out, why is there a garbage truck just randomly in the middle of the street with the doors open and the keys in the ignition?
because it
Like,
was
why
the
is that there?
90s, dude.
I
Everybody left
guess.
their keys. Like that's just how that happened. But even before that, though, it's like Splinter was just gonna kill this dude, because like Splinter's got him hanging over the edge, and he's like, yeah, death comes to us all, but like you're gonna die, and it's, like he says, like without honor after he falls, but it's like, yeah, Splinter's just ready to like toss this guy off the side of the roof and kill him.
Yeah, there was no like lesson to the turtles about, forgiveness and, taking the higher path and help him up and, hey guys, come over and grab him. We'll make him face justice. Now he's like, bye.
Right, yeah. No, this is you're dead, dude. Like
Yeah.
like you'll think twice before chaining up another rat. Like
It's almost like he took that personally.
right, exactly. Like holy cow. Um so Rob, any other you know quick notes or anything about this movie before we get into some facts about this movie, some box office, um and how this thing did back in the day?
So a couple other quick things. Can we just talk about how weird it is that April's boss just shows up at her apartment not once but twice in this movie? Like just without even calling, saying he's coming, he just shows up at her apartment with his son in
Right.
tow. Can we talk about just how weird that is? Can you imagine like randomly your boss just knocking on your door and walking into your house? Like how weird is that? Like yeah. I mean, I know that there's kind of like a thing and they talk about this a lot with a show like The Big Bang Theory that nobody ever just like calls or texts each other. They just show up at each other's house because you kind of have to have the two people in the scene. Like I get it, but it was so bizarre and weird. That I had to mention it. There's a couple of things in this movie that are so legitimately funny that I do want to mention them specifically. The whole scene where Casey and Donnie are exchanging insults alphabetically is a
Yes.
legitimately funny scene. I had forgotten about it. And then when it got started, I was like, oh, how did I forget about this? Like, it was legitimately funny. And Donnie's got a line about when they find the leftover pizza that they were all excited about. And then Donnie opens it and obviously it's got mold all over. And he talks about only if you want penicillin on your pizza. Like, just another example of a movie that goes dark, but really doesn't take itself too seriously at any one time where it can't come back and still be legitimately funny. The other one thing that I'd like to just kind of touch on, the origin story in the cartoons, which is kind of what I think most canon sort of uses as their origin point too, is that Hamato Yoshi was a human because he touched rats, and before he got mutated, that was the last thing animal that he touched, and that's why he became Splinter, because the turtles had touched him. The last thing they had touched was a human.
Mm-hmm.
They became, kind of like a human hybrid sort of thing, which when you kind of like explain it, it doesn't really make any sense at all. The fact that he was a rat to begin with, I actually like this. I think this change from the origin story that we were kind of accustomed to actually makes more sense. And sometimes I think adaptions try to get too cute almost with, oh, we have to change something for the sake of changing something. But this is one that I actually really liked and I think made sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree with you. I definitely did. One thing, because this isn't like this is just in it, but man, I laughed. And again, I know in this day and age, but man, I laughed when they go back down to the sewer, and they're going to get ready to go after Shredder and try and figure out where Splinter is. And well, at this point, they don't even know who Shredder is, um, actually. So, but they're going to try and go back and they're going to try and find Splinter. And Casey's like, so what are we talking about spending the night down here? And Donatello says, you're claustrophobic. I'm sorry, like I cracked up when he's like, you want a fist in the mouth? I've never even looked at another guy. Like I just laughed.
I
Like,
never caught that joke as a kid, and I only caught it for the first time on this rewatch. I was like, oh, wow.
yeah, I was just like, yeah, that's funny. Like, I'm sorry, it is. Like, it's
Yeah.
just like it made me laugh. But yeah. So I mean, Rob, we both established, this is a win. This is a movie that I don't just like. I love this movie.
Yeah. As we were kind of discussing this, you had said, yeah, it's going to be back out in theaters. And I said to you with the apprehension, oh geez, I haven't seen it in a long time. I'm worried that it doesn't hold up. Those were almost my
Yeah,
exact words. And very quickly, when I turned this on the other night, I was like, why the hell did I worry about that? This does hold up. This is still fun. This is something that I'm like, why have I waited almost 20 years to watch this again? This is actually really good. Like, even by today's standards. So I watched this with my son, who's now 12 years old, and I wasn't sure if he'd be into it or not. Because most of what he's seen has been a different production level. It's been more CG. He's definitely seen all. It's a lot more of that is what he's used to. And I asked him, I was like, "Hey, what did you think of this? Did you like it?" He's like, "Oh yeah, this was great." So yeah, this will still hold up to kids today, I think.
yeah, no, it certainly does. So, we're gonna get into some box office, some behind the scenes stuff. Just a quick little recap on this movie. So, this was released March 30th, 1990. Almost two lifetimes ago for me and you, Rob. I mean,
Feels that way.
we were kids and then we turned into teenagers and young adults and now we're just full grown adults. So this is a long time ago in our life, but back then $13.8 million for the budget and 202 million dollars worldwide. That's a huge turnaround. You think about $202 million in 1990, and again, like maybe you don't think about that now, but man, that's a lot of money. This was a hit. In every sense of the word, this was a bona fide success that almost didn't happen. Because of Howard the Duck. Howard the Duck came out, and that's a movie where to me it's so bad it's good. I love it, but it was so poorly received and did so bad that this movie almost didn't happen because of it. Um, which you never know. Do we? You know, 1990. I mean, geez, we talked about this earlier. We got Super Mario Brothers 3 years after this.
Oh,
Like
jeez.
you think about the contrast of this to Mario Brothers.
Ugh.
And you talk about just the stark difference in overall quality, but with this too, one of the cool things is each character, Raphael, Donatello, Michelangelo, and Leonardo, each actor gets another part in the movie. They have a physical appearance inside of there, which is really cool. Each one of them has their own little, you know, placement here in the movie. I did not realize that Corey Feldman is the voice of Donatello.
I saw that for the first time and actually recognized that on this watch through as well.
Like, I was just like, wait, what? Like, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
um, they did switch. Like, one of the things too, like, this movie is rated PG, but they did some things with the lighting that actually allowed them to stay a PG rating because in like high definition now and things like that, you can see a little bit more. And Rob, like, I don't know if you noticed this, but like one of the things, like when the turtles come back and find their lair busted up, there's actually a really huge puddle of blood um in the middle of the floor that you can clearly see now. But because of the lighting back, like how it was filmed back in the 90s, and it was darker and grainier than like an HD transfer nowadays, like you really couldn't pick up on it. So they use some, well, maybe not use, but they just realized that there were some things that they could get away with because it wasn't really shown.
Mm.
But, and then, you know, again, at the time back in, the 90s, this was an independent film, the highest grossing independent film of all time then. Um where again, it was big, but you don't think of that. You don't think that this is going to be this big of a hit.
Well, everybody went and saw it. I mean, I distinctly remember seeing this in theaters. Everybody that I grew up with went and saw this in theaters. Um, this was just like the biggest thing that could possibly have happened to us as kids. And I think what gets lost is there's so many more options today. There's never been
Mhm.
more options for entertainment, and people have never been more upset at the same time. It's wild, right? Like people are more angry and more upset when there's more stuff to do than there ever has been. Um, but I don't know that we'll see anything that rivals like what a chokehold the Ninja Turtles had on the 90s, like the late 80s into the 90s.
And this movie, whether good or bad, I mean, it spawned two sequels. Um, it spawned, and Rob, you had sent me the clip, and funny enough, I had just watched it, but it spawned like almost like a Disney on Ice type thing, like not except they weren't on skates, but this movie with how well it did, man, it took over. The video games, the toy, like, man, this thing came out and it really did. And you think about it nowadays, and again, like, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but back in the 90s, it's like, no, this was a big deal. And it's hard to truly grasp it if you weren't around in that time, when now everything's a big deal. Everything gets a toy lineup. Everything gets a sequel. Um, regardless of whether or not it's good or, just barely makes enough money back, most things get a sequel. But, back in the 90s, like, this was a huge achievement.
I mean, I think we're talking about something. This film came out 30 years ago, but the cartoon and the toys predate that by several years. What can
Right.
you even really think of that's still relevant, and not just relevant, but very relevant today, that's lasted 30 years? I mean, like GI Joe, not anywhere near the level of popularity as it was in the 80s and the 90s. Like My Little Pony, like any of that stuff. Like even Power Rangers, that's still relevant today, never really had the peaks of just the in the zeitgeist as what Ninja Turtles did at its peak. and still, like, it's kind of dropped off a little bit, but like Turtles have kind of just stuck around. There's maybe been a few years where we don't really get a lot of Turtles content, but like you can just release a Turtles video game and people are going to be super excited about it in ways that, I don't know, I guess maybe Batman, Batman's been around for over 100 years now. Superman's been around forever now too. Like, I guess kind of that might be like comic book characters that have been around for that period of time is about what I can think of. But just the way that this blew up and stayed relevant, I'm struggling to think of anything else that rivals that.
No, it's a very, very big deal how long this has stayed around for sure. So, yeah, I mean, we're gonna wrap this up, but this will lead into um, going into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: Secret of the Ooze. Um, that is one that I have watched probably more than the first Turtles. Um, but I remember liking it, but again, it's going to be very interesting because there are some key things that I remember from that. And even things that they had to change from this movie because there were some parents that were very upset with the nature of this movie where they made major changes to the second one. Um, I don't think we'll get to the third Turtles movie. I tend to not want to watch that one.
Disavow its
I
existence.
like, yeah, really. And Rob, you know I'm a guy who doesn't do that. Like I don't not watch something because it's bad. Like
You
I
made me watch
almost
Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, so
yeah, like I
yeah.
almost want to watch it more when it's bad. But yeah, like Turtles 3, I don't think that'll be one that we review. We're gonna do Turtles 2, and I'm gonna be very interested to go back, kind of recap some of the things that were had to be changed because of this movie, even though it was such a big success. Um, that had to be switched in Turtles 2.
I'm definitely looking forward to the second one again. It's been quite a while. I kind of like you. I feel like remembering back to like being, l- l- preteen into my teens and, that kind of time frame. Like I remember probably enjoying the second one more because I think it was a little less dark. It was a little more fun from what I remember.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll be curious to see if I still feel that way now because, like I said, this original one from 1990, it's remarkably well done and still holds up and is still worth a watch today in 2025.
Absolutely. So, listen, everybody, thank you so much for everybody that is going to listen to this episode. Now, Facebook page is back up, Instagram page is back up, TikTok page is back up. We still have the email. Every single one of those links is going to be in the description that is attached to this. So, just like in the past, send us emails, what movies you'd like to see, your thoughts, put it in the comments on the Facebook page, Instagram page, what you thought of this review, how fondly do you remember this? Did you like it? Do you not like it? And, we are excited to be back, excited to continue to talk about movies. And yeah, Rob, all I can say is, thanks.
Season 2, here we go. Yes, please send in your suggestions because if you, the listener, don't send in suggestions, eventually we'll get to the point where Matt is going to make me watch Madam Web so we can talk about it. And I would rather not do that. So please, listeners, send in your suggestions for my sake, so that we never get to the point where Matt thinks that's a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Join us for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: Secret of the Ooze next week when we go to the movies.